Next, it's the all-new special, GameView.
Hey guys, Scott here, and it's time for another Game View. Tonight, we are discussing the Nintendo NX, and we're also talking about The Legend of Zelda, the new game that was supposed to be coming out exclusively for the Wii U, but is now also coming out for the NX, and also delayed again. So tonight, with me, I have Christina!
Hello.
Sara.
Yo.
And Roxie.
Hello.
Alright, our panel is set. Let's get at it. And I am going to start with you, Roxie, because I know you've got a ton of stuff to say on this. So we're going to start off with our first topic, which is Zelda Wii U. Just to give a little bit of background to our viewers, you guys probably already know this, but the new Legend of Zelda game, first revealed January 2013, it was slated for a 2015 release, then in March 2015, it was delayed to 2016, now we find out it's delayed to 2017, and originally, we all assumed it was going to be March 2017, but now the official Nintendo site just says 2017, which means it could be at any point during next year. So, your thoughts, Roxie?
Well, my thing is, I'm a really big fan of Zelda. Anybody who's talked with me or knows me or seen any of my stuff knows that Zelda is my favorite franchise. So, seeing the trailer for the Zelda U game, I'm like, oh snap, it's gonna be good. It looks really good. I love it. And so, hearing that it's still, when it was first delayed to 2016, I was like, oh man, that sucks. Now I gotta wait a whole year. Then when it's delayed to 2017, I'm like, to March 2017, I'm like, wow, are you actually serious right now? Because I was pretty ticked off, because I don't like waiting for my Zelda games. I'm an impatient person, despite other things that I do, which could be questioned, I guess. But and the thing about it being exclusive to the Wii U originally, I don't care that it's getting a release on the NX. That's cool, dandy, that's fine by me.
Yeah, it's just a repeat of the Twilight Princess release.
Yeah. And Twilight Princess was a good game. I will fight somebody over Twilight Princess.
So will I.
Like, you don't mess around with that game. And so...
I have a huge fangirl crush on Midna. I'm sorry, I need to say that.
But,
she's damn fine.
But it getting delayed to 2017. Originally I was really ticked off. I was like, come on, are you serious with this crap? I didn't care that it was being simultaneously released for the NX. I didn't care about that. I just want my damn Zelda game. And when I thought back on it, I kind of cooled off and I was like, well, I guess I would much rather prefer a Zelda game that was delayed, because a delayed game in time will be good, or okay.
Not necessarily, because look what happened to Duke Nukem. That was delayed for how many years, and it turned out to be a right piece of
Well,
that's fair.
So, it's not a guarantee.
But it's better than a a distributor or a production company will take more time to actually polish up the product rather than just push it out the door. Because if you push it out the door, you're Mass Effect.
Yeah.
If you push it out the door, you're Sonic 06 or Sonic Boom.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. A delayed game will hopefully be okay, but a rushed game will be forever bad.
Yep.
Like,
I'm trying to think of other games.
Everybody knows Sonic Boom was bad.
Yeah.
Like, it was just awful. Some people say it's worse than 06, some people say it's better than 06.
06 was the one where he was, had that romance with that human girl, right?
Yep.
And it was really buggy and glitchy.
And it's real fun, because I enjoy playing it.
Really?
Yeah, like, my thing with that is that buggy games can sometimes be fun because of the rage that it induces, and rage can be funny.
Yeah, oh, fair enough.
I'll get the angry video game nerd and...
Well, let me bring this up then. What were your thoughts on Nintendo removing that March 2017 title from the site? Because, I mean, obviously, everyone assumed that, okay, well, if they're delaying Zelda to coincide with the NX release, then, okay, makes sense. It's obviously going to be available during launch, but now that it just says a generic 2017 title, what would happen if they did release it for, let's say, holiday 2017? I mean, is that going to affect... I mean, are you going to get even more angry about that, I guess, or...
I mean, I would be mad for a time, because that means I have to wait even more. But the end result is still the same. A delayed game can hopefully be okay. Rust will be forever bad.
Well, the thing is, like, yeah, it would piss a lot of the Zelda fans off that it's delayed yet again if it gets delayed to the holiday season. But that all being said, Zelda fans will still go out and buy the game. Like, I'm gonna go buy the game, and I hopefully will have a Wii U or an NX by that point. Hopefully, no guarantees, because yay money. But like the fans will still buy it. The problem for Nintendo is if they don't launch it with the NX, then it will affect the sales of the NX on release. I can pretty much guarantee that if they don't have that Zelda title, the NX at launch will have not truly detrimented sales as a result, but they won't sell as many units without the Zelda release if they did release it with the Zelda, because then a whole bunch, if they release it at the same time, of course all the fans are going to go out buying the console at the same time as they buy the game. So that's the big issue on Nintendo's end if they delay it. So the only reason they'd have any real reason that they have for delaying the game is if, for whatever reason, there's some issues with the game that they want to iron out first, or some quality of life things that they want to add into the game to make sure that it's absolutely polished. So there's got to be some good reason for them taking off that March date, because it would be a dumb move from an investor's perspective to not have Zelda as a release title.
Here's the questionable part, though, because I believe I read somewhere, and again, this could just be mere speculation, but I believe I read that the release of Zelda was pushed back specifically to coincide with the NX, perhaps the launch, right? So in other words, maybe most of the game is actually complete. It's just, rather than release it, let's say Christmas 2016, they decided, oh well, we want to push it back so that it's released at the same time the new console comes out. And
that's something I mentioned to you the other day. Whenever I had actually calmed down, I was like, I think I had said something along the lines of it being delayed from holiday 2016 to the NX launch, just so the NX would have a launch title.
Yeah.
And I think, I can't remember if what I read was correctly, but I think, I don't even know why I said correctly at the end of that sentence. It was the NX isn't being released in the holidays, just so it has a strong lineup for the launch in March. Which leads me to believe that some unannounced games, or some games that we haven't heard of, are in the works for the NX to go to be another launch title for it, along with Zelda U/Zelda NX.
Well, if you look at the rumor mill and all that, like some, I don't know their names, but they're mentioned a lot on like the No or on the Nintendo. They're like the go-to peoples for good rumors, good leaks for Nintendo.
Oh,
and
like
apparently
Emily Rogers, or
yeah, I can't remember names very well because I don't pay attention to the rumor mill myself. But it could be a thing of, well, there has to be a big lineup because a lot of the rumor mill is suggesting that there is a big launch lineup. So there's hopefully enough of a launch lineup to compensate for the lack of a Zelda if it's not in a launch title. But if they don't have a robust lineup and their Zelda's gone, they might
the NX sales would drop.
Not significantly, but they would. But they may be doing that to try and boost holiday sales for 2017. Because if they launch, because if you think of it this way, if they launch everything as a launch title for the NX to have a strong launch, then they might not have anything for the Christmas season to have a strong Christmas season.
I think the biggest issue with the Wii U, and you might have something to add on to this, Roxy, but for me anyways, the biggest issue has been the amount of time it takes for Nintendo to release first-party titles, and there being huge gaps, having to wait months on end between, I guess, the dev cycles for these different games, between Mario and, well, now we know that Zelda's being pushed back, right? So maybe they're trying to avoid that with the NX. I mean, if they do have this robust lineup of games, and they're going to speed up development time to at least have good quality first-party content coming out on a consistent basis, then I think that might be the difference between the NX succeeding and sort of falling where the Wii U did.
Well,
my thing with the Wii U is that I never really had to wait for... of course I had to wait, but I never had to wait over an extensive amount of time for any games that I had wanted. Like, I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I've got Bayonetta 2, Mario Kart 8, Pokken Tournament, Shovel Knight, Splatoon, Super Mario Maker, Super Smash Bros. Wii U, Twilight Princess HD, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Yoshi's Woolly World. And I never the only one that I actually had to wait a good while to get was Yoshi's Woolly World, because for some reason the launch for that was so weird that they released it in Europe far before they released it in America. But that being said, you could be right about the thing with wanting to have enough launch titles as well as enough holiday titles for the NX.
Yeah.
And they want to avoid that extensive amount of time waiting with the between games.
The other thing we also have to remember too, Nintendo, like for instance, if we look at Microsoft and Sony, at least from Microsoft itself doesn't develop its games. It's typically the publisher for the majority of its titles, and the games are actually produced by other companies like Bungie or Treyarch or EA. or BioWare and all those others. But Nintendo does as you said, first-party stuff where they themselves develop the game, the software for their console that they're also developing. So they have the two big projects or multiple big projects going on all at once. So extending that range from just March 2017 to 2017, if they have that big lineup, they're going to have a lot of that they have to get done, and they may not, because it says right in the press release that it's because they don't want to get fans hopes up for a March 2017 release only to miss it because of some sort of unexpected delay. So they're giving themselves that breathing room as well, probably to give them a bit more development space to get everything done properly.
How would you feel if how would you feel if we got to March 2017 and they said, "Oh, we're really sorry, but we have to delay the game to 2018"?
I would quit. I would just give up.
Yeah.
I would essentially say, you know what, this is going to be Mighty Number 9 and just not care.
Did they finally set a release date for Mighty Number 9, or?
Did you mean they finally set another release date? Because they're constantly setting release dates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, it's hard to, I guess it's hard to get hyped about a game that keeps getting pushed back. If you know where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to get hyped for a game that's had minimal trailers, minimal game footage.
I think the only trailer that we've seen was that announcement trailer.
Well, there was the announcement trailer, which was in 2015.
Yeah.
And then there was what was shown at the Game Awards in 2015, I think.
Oh, that short little gameplay segment on the horseback?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's pretty much about it from what I know. And look at the details about the NX that we know, quote unquote, nothing. All we know is it's their next gen console and it's codenamed NX. We don't know anything solid about it.
Okay, well, I mean, to shift gears a little bit into the NX, I mean, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, well, first of all, do you think that Nintendo is going to stick to that March release date for a worldwide global launch?
Depends. Because in terms of Nintendo stuff, Nintendo releases for this year, what's the lineup looking like?
Very thin. At least on the Wii U end.
They're focusing on 3DS launches this year instead of Wii U. So it could be a thing of that the reason why they set it as a March 2017 release date is because that's the end of the 2016 fiscal year, which I was talking about before we started recording. And they might be doing that as so they have some sort of sales records for the NX for 2016 without releasing it too early with a lot of nonsense or unfinished product. It could be very well that the March 2017 release date is the earliest they feel comfortable releasing it without breaking the NX and not having it too late so that they miss the fiscal year. Because if they miss the fiscal year and they don't have high sales records and they don't have any big numbers of anything to show for them, which it's looking like that they won't have anything other than the NX, their investors are going to look at them and say, well, what's going to come next year? Do you have anything coming? Like, where's your projections? And blah, blah, economy, blah, blah, money, blah, blah. And the investors might not be impressed.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the feeling that the investors had when we first got the news of this back at the end of April, right? Because if memory serves correctly, the stock price fell 8% as soon as they announced this delay.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, like we mentioned, we hardly know anything about the NX at this point, other than we're assuming it's some kind of handheld console hybrid, but other than that, as far as tech specs or what exactly it is, we don't know.
There's even been rumors that there's been speculation, rather, specifically from the guys on the know. There's speculation that it could be a game streaming device rather than a straight-up home console. And
honestly, it's kind of hard for me to get any kind of hype for the NX because the only thing we know is, for sure, is the code name NX. We don't even know if that's going to be changed or what.
Something tells me there's probably going to be some sort of big reveal or leak at some point in the next coming year before the actual launch.
Not at E3.
Well, no, that frustrated me when they said that. But like, probably like a few months ahead of time, there's probably going to be some actual legitimate, hey, here's what's actually it's going to be, to try and generate that hype. But anyways.
Speaking of E3, that does make me curious as to what a Zelda-centric E3 conference will be for them. Because Nintendo's always tried to do something like quirky and funny. Like last year it was puppets. The year before that it was Robot Chicken-esque styled, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what they could be. Are they doing like another direct thing like they did last year and the year before? Or if they're doing an actual conference for Zelda? I'm really curious.
It's possible. I mean, we'll get to that in a moment. What were you going to say about the launch lineup, Chi?
I was gonna say that I was looking at the game lineups, and there are no original titles that they have coming.
No.
At all. It's just remake this, remake that, Lego this, Sonic that, Kirby this, Pokemon that. Like, the only thing that I see as a standalone is Soul Axiom, and it's a story-driven puzzle game. That's it.
Yeah.
And they're not coming out with anything new, and it's probably why it fell off for me personally, because I haven't played anything Nintendo since the original DS came out.
Yeah, it's the lineup is very dense with primary content stuff and a lot of sequels and
not only that, the majority of their games are coming out for the 3DS.
Well, this year, it seems like the 3DS is the focus.
Yeah.
Because if we look at basically the major games coming out, I mean, it seems like Nintendo is pinning all of their holiday sales on Pokemon Sun and Moon. Because, I mean, if we look on the Wii U side of things, and I mentioned this before, but I think the only major titles left, you've got Tokyo Mirage Sessions in June, and then, assuming Mighty Number 9 comes out for a change,
I think that was going to be in June or July.
Yeah, that's also June, well, for the moment anyway.
Supposedly.
And the third and final title is Paper Mario Color Splash, which I assume is coming out October or November. But you guys don't want to hear me complain about that game again, because we already ranted about it for over 90 minutes last time.
Or me.
Paper Mario does not have a release date, it just has a year.
I see your comments. I know you're RVY primary colors guy. Bleh.
Mighty Number 9 should be
Yeah.
24th.
Mighty Number 9 is...
Again, I don't want to go too off topic, because, I mean, we're focusing on Zelda and the NX here, but honestly, I would, just to get this out of the bag, I would prefer they delay Color Splash, just forget about 2016, delay it till 2017, do a dual release like Twilight Princess and like Zelda, and fix the game. Again, I don't want to get too much into this because we already spent a great deal of time last time, but I mean, I'm hoping that we get more footage soon so we can analyze it, but so far, it's,
That's something Nintendo has been really bad at, is the whole, hey, people, here's something to drive hype for the thing. They've been really tight-lipped on so much these past couple years.
Cough,
And I have...
Sun and Moon, cough.
What?
They only showed that one clip of Sun and Moon, and then when the thing was going around like, oh, we're gonna get more footage for Sun and Moon, all it was repeating what was already shown in February.
Yep.
Just in a different format.
30 minutes of my life.
Yep. I don't understand why they're doing so tight-lipped on all this stuff. Like,
It's Nintendo. They've always been tight-lipped.
but like, you'd think they'd at least learn from what the other companies have been doing, like with like leaking, quote-unquote, accidentally, quote-unquote, leaking information here and there to get to give people ideas of what the thing might be. But the NX, we don't even know what it's supposed to look like. We don't even have cover art for Zelda U.
I don't think they're doing that just for the fans. They're doing that because of their competitors. Because if their design leaks, then their competitors know what they're doing and can act accordingly, right?
Yeah.
So I understand as a business sense not leaking any footage of it. Like, at most, maybe like a month or two before it launches, because at that point, you're on the production line, you can't stop it. So then it would be fine.
Yeah.
But if they're still in production of it, no, not even close. Like, you're not gonna see any of that until about 2 months before it hits the shelves.
Yeah, well, like, look what look what the Xbox 360 and Xbox One. There are leaks. There are leaks at least almost a year ahead of time with images of what it could look like. I don't think any of them actually did look like what they were supposed to, what those images said.
And then there's
But-
clickbait for like the new
721.
Apple product or what the new Apple phone's gonna
Yeah.
look like. Like, there's a whole bunch of clickbait when it comes to that.
Yeah,
so
but
they
that's why
understand
Apple
the pros
does
and
so
cons.
well. That's why Apple does so well. It's because it's like, oh hey, they have all this stuff where it's like, hey, blah blah blah, here's the next one. Here, clickbaity stuff. They drive hype for their products so hard. And Nintendo doesn't do that. And it's
The
like,
difference
why?
between a cell phone company, let's say Apple, because let's all admit they're
we're
more of
already
a cell
there.
phone company.
Yeah.
That's a demand that people use every single day. Nintendo is a niche product. No one uses their Wii absolutely every single day, whereas a cell phone, people carry it around with them.
Roxy.
Let's be honest, more people have a cell phone than they have a Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
That's probably true, but I still use mine every day.
And that's fair, there are people like you. But there's also people like me who don't.
Yeah. But they could still drive hype for their product if they gave something. Like even like just little morsel of information on some possible concept art even. Just
I
like here's a
understand.
concept design.
Yeah, I understand them trying to avoid leaking too much info because I guess maybe they're concerned Sony's gonna try and copy them with that PS 4.5 or PS Neo or whatever it is.
Honestly,
It's a legit fear.
well, honestly, as much as the player bases might hate each other, Nintendo and Sony actually have quite a lot of respect for each other as companies, and even the CEOs have quite a lot of respect for each other. Like, they have PSPs over at Nintendo that they use, and employees of Nintendo have DSs that they play with.
The
So I
companies
don't,
respect each
I don't
other.
see Sony really doing that.
The companies respect each other way more than the fan bases do.
Oh yeah,
Because the fan bases, let's face it, every video game fan base is toxic as crap, including the Zelda fan base.
my console's better than yours. My game is better than yours.
Exactly. And the only time I ever saw any kind of unity within the gaming fan bases for Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo was, let's face it, when Mr. Iwata passed away.
Yeah, because yeah, it was really
Actually,
sucky.
cried that day.
But back to the main topic, that we also have to remember that Nintendo, because of the death of Iwata, it has a new president, and they also underwent a huge restructuring of their company this past year as well. So that's
If I remember correctly, the current president for Nintendo is a previous president of Nintendo of America, who was the president during the GameCube era.
Wasn't
So
he
pretty much the boom of Nintendo.
Yes.
Wasn't Kimishima at one point president of the Pokemon Company as well?
I think so.
I'm searching that up now.
So, I mean, the fact that we've got a new president, I mean, obviously the company's taking a bit of a different tact in the way it does things, right? I mean, because
Well, as clear indication by the whole restructuring of their management and staff.
He was the president of Nintendo of America from January 2002, succeeding Minoru Arakawa until Reggie Fils-Aimé took his place in May of 2006. And he was indeed the president of, he was Pokemon Company's chief financial officer. Then he was the president of Pokemon USA Incorporated, and then he was president of Nintendo of America.
I think that was before they consolidated it under the Pokemon Company International.
Probably.
But, I mean, it gives me faith in the sense that because he's been around during that time, I mean, a lot of people hate the N64 and GameCube, but I still think some of the best games for Nintendo home consoles came out during the N64 and GameCube era.
For sure.
N64 was a groundbreaker, and GameCube, although it wasn't necessarily a groundbreaker, it still had a lot of good games, and it was still a good console for that generation.
I can see the hate on the Nintendo 64, because at the time it was new, people didn't know how to feel about it, it was mind-blowing. And people, you know, typically don't like change, and that's exactly what the Nintendo 64 was. Albeit a very glitchy change, it was a change from 2D to 3D. And then with the GameCube, which I will regard as the second best console because I love my Wii U, if there's only one thing that Nintendo could do with the Wii U to make sales skyrocket, and I've said it thousands of times before, put GameCube games on the eShop, but GameCube, what the Wii U is essentially GameCube 2.0. Bad sales, great games, great console.
It gives me hope, though, that because Kimishima was essentially a big... I want to say he played a big role during that time period, that I hope he remembers why those two consoles were successful, maybe not in terms of sales, but in terms of the quality of the games that were produced. And if he takes that same kind of quality and incorporates that into games created for the NX and beyond, then it'll bring Nintendo back to, I guess, what was my most favorite era before we got into the Wii stuff, the Wii generation.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, this whole playing out release dates. Because I was just gonna add something I just thought about to add to what you were saying earlier, Sarah, was that delaying a game doesn't necessarily mean that the game is going to live up to one's expectations. Like, another example of that was Star Fox Zero. They delayed the game by about 6 months, and at least for me anyways, it was a good game, but I mean, 6 months, in my mind, they could have added a lot more content, they could have done a lot more with the game, and then it came out, and it still ended up being an 8-hour main story experience that was almost essentially a remake of the 64 version. Well, 6 months nowadays isn't really a lot of time for a video game for game development. Usually 6 months. Within 6 months of release, it's usually within final beta or close to. So they can't make a lot of changes at that point. It's essentially bug fixing at that point. Like, for instance, the Call of Duty series. The reason why they have that cycle of 3 developers to develop each game every consecutive year is because one studio can't produce a single game every year like that, because those are the studios that they use are smaller studios. They're not as big as like Ubisoft, who has multiple companies all around the world. So they're smaller studios, and they need that 3-year buffer period between their release cycle to develop the game properly, quote unquote. So 6 months isn't necessarily a lot of time. It was more than likely that delay was as a result of, oh, there are a ton of bugs, let's fix them all first, and then they release the game. Rather than...
That's something I like about not only Platinum Games, but typical Nintendo developers as well, because they'll try to fix bugs before they come out.
Yes.
Unlike, cough, Sonic theme, cough, big red button, cough. Oh man, I'm sorry guys, I have an awful cough.
Oh, suddenly this box is floating into the air with me on top of it. Why? It's just a box. Oh, this wall is not solid.
I guess the most disappointing part of all this news is basically, I guess as some people put it, it's not gonna hurt Nintendo in the long term. It's just a short-term delay. But, I mean, it really doesn't leave a lot of good impressions, especially with the fans, especially for the rest of 2016. The fact that Zelda is going to be the only playable title at E3.
Where was it said that Zelda is going to be the only playable title at E3?
It was in their investors meeting, the press release regarding that. Apparently they're...
I was about to say, I don't remember seeing that, I just remember seeing that it was going to be Zelda-oriented.
Yeah, Zelda-oriented.
That was... I'll see if I can bring it up here, but that was specifically mentioned.
Yeah, I remember hearing about what Scott's talking about.
Nintendo will focus its attentions on the upcoming game in the Legend of Zelda series. The Wii U version of the game will be playable for the first time on the E3 show floor, and it will be the only playable game Nintendo presents at the show in order to provide attendees a complete immersion.
Okay. Okay, I need to go to E3.
I know, I want to go to E3 so bad. But
they freaking changed their thing. I don't know if they changed it back to where only people of like big stuff can go to E3.
I do not know.
I was gonna try to go last year, but when I was looking at all the stuff, it was like, oh, only people like IGN, major
press and all that can go.
Major press stuff, gaming and whatnot can go.
Yeah, back to what I was saying really quick though, is they're probably focusing it and gearing it towards Zelda U, because that seems to be the loudest voice right now in Nintendo's fan base is Zelda U, Zelda U, Zelda U. Like
Zelda anything.
Yeah, and
except for Triforce Heroes.
Except for anything Toon Link-ish.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, not specifically Toon Link, because Toon Link is one of their popular links.
Oh yeah, I love Wind Waker.
Toon Link and Twilight Princess Link. It's anything freaking Four Swords related or Triforce Heroes related.
Yeah, that's overly kiddie friendly.
God forbid CDI games. Oh god.
CDI. No. Melting. But yeah,
I think they're focusing on Zelda though, because it's, I mean, obviously because they don't want to talk about the NX and they don't really have any other big news to focus on, right? I mean, like, other than Zelda, what other game or what other announcement or what else is coming within the next year that is having that much hype, right? I mean, there's nothing. It's always...
I wouldn't be surprised if they announced their lineup for the NX launch, like what games that they're going to line it up with. They're probably not going to do it in detail or anything. They said they wouldn't talk about the NX itself. They never said anything about the games for it.
That's
so
true.
They could lay teasers for what kind of launch titles that they want to have.
I'm pretty sure something that they might mention at E3 would be Skyward Sword on the eShop, because it was already released on the eShop in Japan, I believe, but nowhere else. So that might be a big thing that they release or talk about. And then
releasing that for North America.
Yeah, and something that they could announce at E3 that they probably won't and probably will never be a thing, but it would generate a lot of hype and a lot of want, would be Super Mario Sunshine 2. Because,
that was actually a good game. I like that.
Despite the silly plot and the silly physics in the game, it was a pretty good game. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Can I just make a quick remark? I really hope that Zelda U returns with the red, green, and blue tunics, and they don't use red, green, and yellow.
Okay,
sorry. I had to say that joke.
Was a thing because the magic tunic was the worst thing ever in Twilight Princess.
Oh god, I hated that thing. I never really collect rupees after I buy everything that I need to buy, so that thing kept every time I wore it, it wouldn't do anything because I had no rupees ever.
I guess it kind of has more of a use in Twilight Princess HD because of the bottomless wallet, which lets you have 9,999 rupees, but, you know, it's still draining rupees.
That you still had a wallet that size in the regular Twilight Princess? In the original rings? No?
I don't think so. Because that was, like, one of the big things that was announced for Twilight Princess HD was with the Wolf Link amiibo, was that after you completed the Cave of Shadows or whatever, you get the bottomless wallet, which lets you hold up to, I think, 9,999 rupees.
Okay, so yeah, it makes sense that it's a new thing for just the HD version then.
Alright, so what we're gonna do, just to wrap this up, I'm gonna read out some key points on the investors meeting, and just to give you an idea of what was talked about, I guess, by Kimishima. And then I will get each of your final thoughts on everything as a whole here. So, here's basically the summarization of all this. So, Kimishima says, "We have major titles for Nintendo 3DS for the fiscal year ending March 2017. As I mentioned in the presentation, there is a solid lineup of titles that should greatly contribute to the sale of both the hardware and the software. One of the reasons for choosing the launch timing that we did is so that the software lineup will be ready in time for the hardware launch. Not only at launch, but we also need to be able to continuously release titles after launch. We are planning for this to be a platform that consumers can enjoy for a long time. I believe this business requires us to continue to update, to respond to these opinions in various ways. We knew from the beginning that we would not be able to satisfy everyone right away. We believe that it's important to continue to revitalize the applications by implementing feedback from consumers. Our goals are to act on the feedback we received and increase the amount of consumers who are playing daily. We believe that in addition to the number of units purchased, the activity numbers, including hardware activity and how much the games continue to be played, are both important factors. And pretty much we are predicting about 800,000 Wii U hardware sales in the fiscal year ending March 2017, so the last 10 months or so. which is a decrease of about 2.4 million units compared to the previous year. NX and smart device business will be essential to cover this gap. We also expect download content business to play a role. However, we're planning with the expectation that NX sales will compensate for much of the impact on sales from reduced Wii U hardware sales. So I'm going to start off with you, Christina. What are your whole final thoughts on this situation here with them delaying the game and announcing the NX for release in March and the whole 9 yards there?
Well, they're a business, right? They're gonna do what they can to make their money, and they're trying to compete with two big heads as Sony and Microsoft with the Xbox and PlayStation. So they're trying to me, it seems like they're just trying to tread water right now. Like, they haven't come out with anything new since the Wii U remote. What was it called? I think it was just the Wii U.
Yeah.
The gamepad.
Yeah, like, that was it was a disappointment for my personal perspective, because, like, I don't know, this just didn't live up to what was expected, and it was seen as the next gen console for Nintendo, and it just did not do what they thought it did, is how I feel about that. So them pulling out like an actual console, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. I'm hoping it's not handheld, but we'll see. We'll see.
Alright, you're up next, Sarah. What do you think of everything here?
Well, quick note, in that whole thing that you read out, there was a mention of smart devices, so that sort of lends credence to the whole maybe mobile hybrid thing, which the whole Nitomo is another thing in that scoreboard for mobile development. I honestly think that the reason why it's March 2017 for the release of the NX is simply because it's an investment. It's an investor's decision to try and it's early enough that, because the thing is too, it's a March 2017 release is months at least ahead of the expected Xbox and PlayStation release dates. It's not too early so that they end up having to skip stuff at the end, but it's early enough that they can get in at the end of the fiscal year and get a big bang and get ahead of the game, ahead of Microsoft and Xbox. Now, the reason why Zelda U is just been given a general 2017 release is probably because they're not entirely sure if they want it as a release title or as a holiday title. Because yeah, having a strong lineup right out the gate is a good idea, but it's also a good idea to have a strong holiday lineup as well. And it also gives their developers sort of some breathing room to develop everything properly, because they have so many things right now in development in terms of hardware and games. Exactly. They're weighing that it's just a financial decision, like what's their greatest risk, because they're going to get the money either way. All of us can admit that. As soon as those things are released, all of us Nintendo fans will be at their feet going, "This is the greatest thing ever!" for the first little while at least. And then we'll start hating it. And then we'll start liking it again. And then we'll start hating it.
I guess one thing that we haven't touched on a lot so far anyway is the mobile side of things. Like you pointed out there was the smart devices, the fact that Nintendo is bringing what was it, Animal Crossing
and Fire Emblem.
Yeah, Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem. Again, we don't know the whole scope of them yet, but we know that they're bringing them to mobile. And then, of course, Pokemon Go is coming to mobile as well, right? So they're obviously delving into the smartphone side of things.
And then Nitomo, which was recently released. Yay, Nitomo.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm super excited for Pokemon Go.
So what do you make of all this, Roxy? I mean, I know you were, just like the rest of us, I mean, disappointed to hear all the news, but,
We'll just have to bide our time and wait and see. It's a business, like they've said. You gotta... And at the end of the day, it's our money. We get to choose what we spend it on, and if we spend it on Nintendo stuff...
And we'll spend it on Nintendo stuff, because we're Nintendo fan people, so...
Yeah.
Did I just say fan people?
Yep.
Apparently.
you did.
You're a net
Fanboys and
English.
fangirls, there we go.
There's actually one other thing that I thought of, because I know you want to get this out at some point, Roxy, so now's probably the best time. Did we find out, what was it that they were including Linkle in the new Zelda?
Really?
What was that?
No, there was a rumor that went around about how there is a possibility that because of Linkle and how she was received in Hyrule Warriors Legends, that there is a possibility
That you might get to choose between which one.
playable character as the main character in Zelda U/NX, and I want that closed because it messes with the lore.
Why?
You don't just with the lore like that.
There's nothing in the lore that says that Link can't be a girl.
I mean, except, you know, in every Zelda game to date, and in the lore it said that he's a guy. So, you know.
The lore
Unless he's rebirthed.
Yeah, the lore just says it says the hero. It doesn't actually genderize the hero.
Let me hold on, because it said across many games that Link is a young boy who then becomes the hero of Hyrule. Not Link is a young girl.
Yeah, that's just because the hero just happened to be born a boy.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing a female Link, I just don't want a female Link in a main title game. I could care less about Linkle in Hyrule Warriors 3DS remake.
What if it's a thing like they were twins? And you just get to choose which twin you want to use in the adventure.
I'm completely fine if it was like Link was reborn and now he's a girl. Okay, yeah, I understand this.
Now, if that were the case, I would be fine with it. But they would have to incorporate that into the game, and then they would have to figure out some way to, like, opposite that if you choose as the male character.
It's like, remember, Ocarina of Time and then Majora's Mask? You remember how Majora's Mask, he's in Purgatory? Yeah, Link died. This is the new one.
The new one
I'm not actually convinced that he's actually died.
And that's just a theory of video game theory.
I didn't say it!
Like I said, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing the idea of a female Link, I just don't want it messing up the lore, because the timeline's already screwed up as it is.
Yeah, but it won't mess up the lore, because as I said, there's nothing in the lore that requires Link to be a boy. Like, you could argue that there is lore-wise Zelda has to be a woman because she's a reincarnate of the goddess Hylia. So you could argue that, but you don't necessarily there's nothing necessarily in the lore that argues that Link has to be a boy.
Why are we getting into this conversation? I don't understand this anymore.
Because
you're talking about statistics and money, and now we're just like gender this, gender that. It's like, oh my god, no, I'm on Tumblr.
I find this very ironic because you're talking to the transgender person who doesn't want a female Link in a main series title.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how they do it. I don't honestly care either way. I don't see a problem against it, and I don't see a problem for it, and I don't understand why people see a problem either way, because it's ultimately Nintendo is the Lord God of Zelda. They can do whatever the they want with it.
I honestly still don't have an opinion on Linkle in Hyrule Warriors.
I think she's cute, a little dumb, but cute.
I like the crossbows idea, but other than that, I still don't know how I feel about her.
Anywho.
Well, on that note, that's all the time we have for you guys tonight. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to let us know. Follow us on all social media at TOONDISE, #GameView, and support us on patreon.com/TOONDISE. Until next time, I'm Scott.
I'm
Christina.
Roxie.
I'm Sarah.
And we are out of here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.